Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, ain't bang them books, be something y'all ain't trying to.
Israel, hear me. We all we have. We all we have. We need each other. Israel, need each other. We all we have. Israel, hear me. We all we have. We all we have. We all we have. Yeah. Israel, hear me. We all we have. I said we need each other. Israel, hear me. We all we have. Father. Israel, hear me. We all we have. Israel, hear me. We all we have. Israel, hear me. We all we have. We all we have. Israel, hear me. We all we have.
For life.
Shema 2G, what?
Forgive. Please, Most High, forgive me for all sins which I committed before you. Gia. Please. I open up my mouth to you, Jill. I sing a prayer to you every night, hoping that you hear my cry. And you make sure that I'm alright. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. In my life, all I knew was you. I turned 13, then I forgot about you. You never let me down. You stayed right there till I came around. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. Most High, you're my God, yeah, and I will do or die. Never ever let you go, no, and that's word to my right eye. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. I open up my mouth to you. I sing a prayer to you every night, hoping that you hear my cry. And you make sure that I'm alright. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. In my life, all I knew was you. I turned 13, then I forgot about you. You never let me down. You stayed right there till I came around. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. Most High, you're my God, yeah, and I will do or die. I never ever let you go, no, and that's word to my right eye. Forgive me for my sins Set me free, wipe me clean for the time to come. Yeah, yeah. And I want you all die. Chill. Oh, just word to my right. Forgive me for my sins and all the things I've done. Yeah, set me free, wipe me clean. Wipe me clean. Yeah, wipe me clean. Yeah, wipe me clean. And I'm gonna die. I'll never let you go. Forgive me for my sins.
Shalom, shalom. We go out to get started. Thank you for joining us. How's everybody doing? We hope, we pray that everybody is well and will be better. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to Danitepublications. We ask you to subscribe to the channel, to comment, to like, and to share. On a human level, giving due respect to the moderator, my brother, Bergen Paris, from the same neighborhood, not to get too personal, that I'm from in what we call Brooklyn, New York. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. We are on the platforms Mordeh Yeshaya Torah lessons, Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons, and Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons too. All right. So I am not aware of how many people are on because it would say one number and then when it's concluded, a whole nother number will be there. But nonetheless, family, I want to, on a human level too, give due respect, if we will, to my brother, Rabbi Kazak, who I just just finished listening to him speak upon a very serious matter about who was who and who influenced who and who taught who and who was a part of who. It is very important to sit there and understand history and who was friends with whom. In, for instance, the scriptures in Psalm chapter 83, it goes into the matter of saying certain nations will lead on to other nations. And even if those nations were not always friendly, they still, concerning Israel, had a common goal. For instance, you have it to where Judaic teachings say that Ham was cursed with being black. That's Judaic teachings. Now, Jewish people may not all subscribe to that. Jewish people and the KKK don't get along, but a commonality, sadly, between them is neither one like who they refer to as black people. You understand? So, not trying to sound cliche-ish, not trying to sound quote-unquote racial, the enemy of my enemy is not always my enemy 100%. So, these are things that we care to, if we will, point out for reference purposes. All righty? So, let us, brothers and sisters, get into this kind of matter. What is the point in this? Is to help set truth back into the earth. Is to sit there and have the minimalist concept of what happened with us in our enslavement to be annihilated. This is not the victim story. This is more so a matter of an apologia, more so than an apology. We're not asking for an apology for taking a woman, hanging her upside down, cutting the baby out, and stepping on the head of the child. We're not looking for an apology for castrating a man. We're not looking for an apology to sitting there, as was done in South Carolina, and putting gunpowder in a man's anus and blasting it. We're not looking for an apology for skinning people alive because they wanted to sit there and run away and have what you would call freedom. We're not looking for an apology for a make-believe mental disorder that was coined and made up called drapetomania or drapetomania, where in 1851, it was said that must have been a mental illness that black people had for wanting to be free. We're not looking for an apology for lying to black people recently as of last month online by saying 600,000 people were fighting for your freedom. No, they were not. In the matter of the American history, what I've noticed, loving history, is you cannot have a detailed book on American history and not mention slavery in the first 10 pages. You cannot have a detailed history of American slavery just focused on the year 1776 and not mention slavery. Slavery was the cornerstone of the American edifice. If you were to ask Alexander Stevens, the reason in part for this presentation is when people begin to push the misnomer of saying, hey, you know, it was only 2% of people who had slaves in the South. It was only 1.6% of people, and they were rich, who had slaves in the South. So when you read about poor white people having slaves from slaves themselves that were interviewed in the 1930s, taking it back to their childhood, how do we explain that? This is in regards to the minimalists who want to say, we were already here. There was no good ship Jesus that was captained by John Hawkins. Black people just make up things to play victim. You're not going to have white women in a confederacy acting like males over something that was based upon 2% of an economy. You're not going to have Bleeding Kansas, where they negotiated whether Nebraska and Kansas should be a slave state, one should be or one should not be. You're not going to have a Missouri Compromise of 1820, 1821, where Maine entered as a free state and Missouri as a slave state, if it was less than 10% of the people owning slaves. You're not going to have the governor of South Carolina saying nobody dare make war on cotton. The cotton that was picked in the South was shipped to places such as England and East India, for those who do know. When you go into the book, Black Cargoes, Brothers and Sisters, by Mannix and Cowley, a book that I acquired when I was 14, 15 years old, and a book that I bought later on of the same title. The recent, no disrespect intended, black movement, for the lack of a better term, FBA, whether if I'm misquoting the name, Foundational Black Americans or Fundamental Black Americans, one of the terms, who go and say this is not an organization. But your main theme, your main premise, when we speak about the Aberdeen Act in Brazil, when British wanted to sit there and regulate the slave trade in Brazil to say it was wicked. Oh, those ain't my people because you don't come from Flatbush, Brooklyn, or you're not from Canarsie, Brooklyn, or South Jamaica. You're from Jamaica, therefore you're not my brother or sister. Because I am, quote, FBA, and therefore I am foundationally within this place here. That, no disrespect to its climate, as they said, black person, playing games, copper tone, swarthy, tawny, whatever term that is only regulated perhaps in English, perhaps. Balboa said he saw Negroes. Amerigo Vespucci sat there and said he saw tawny and copper tone people. But you know what? Balboa, who was a person, Amerigo Vespucci, who was a person, and these other people like Pizarro and Cortez, they didn't go to South Jamaica of today in New York. They didn't go to Pennsylvania of today. When they sat there and said they saw people who were Negroes in the place we call Dominican Republic in Haiti today in the year 1506, was just in the place we call Haiti and Dominican Republic of today. So you cannot, my FBA brother and sister, say we don't associate with the West Indians and the Caribbeans, but then turn right around and cite the European, the white man, the Caucasian man, for the lack of a better term. He said he saw copper tone. The copper tone people they spoke about were not where I am currently in Pennsylvania. The Capitan people they spoke about, and what was later understood as Hispaniola, as pointed out before on the platform, TAWNY, tawny, which goes from light brown to dark brown, were not in Chicago, Illinois. They were in what we call today the West Indian Islands, that you, whoever you may be in FBA, reject. What is causing a brother to get into this kind of matter? And on a human level, giving due respect to the brother who motivates me, my older brother in spirit. It's all good. Shalom to you too, my brother. Thank you for joining on. Again, to anybody who's joined on, if I can be heard well, please press the number 4. Let me know. I'm using a microphone and a whole new system. Still on the StreamYard, but let me know how the audio sounds. In that say particular case and so forth. If you're in good spirits and you hear me well, don't hesitate to call or text me. Don't sit there and let me go on and on like, well, his feelings might get hurt. No, my feelings will be hurt if you can correct and love your brother and rebuke and let me make a fool of myself. That will hurt more. You understand? So thank you for typing that in. My brother, Rob Chief Kazak Ben Zadok. How in the world do you look saying you are a, quote, Black American, but then you're saying you're not, quote, an African American? When Africa is said by many to be named after Scipio Africanus, I heard that. I heard that Africa was named after Ephir, the son of Shem, in a descendant line. I know that the word Afar, spelled with Ayin, Fei, and Resh in Hebrew, is another way they say that means that. Dark, black, if you will. The term Akibulan is an Arabic term for those who do know. There is no monolithic name for the entire continent of what we call Africa today. Pictures of Africa in the 17th century included the land that we call Israel of today. Did you know that? Did you know what was called later on the Atlantic Ocean at one point in history geographically was called the Ethiopian Sea? What does the word Ethiopia mean? It comes from the Greek word, when you read in the book by Ivan Sertima called African Presence in Early Europe, you'll find that the word Ethiopia comes from the two Greek words, Ethien and ops, which means burnt face. So now, as been done on this platform before, if you were to cite Tacitus, and he said, oh, the people who were the Iuda, I-A-U-D-A in Latin, Judea, the English form of the term Iudia, which is the Latin form from the original Hebrew form, Yahuda, meaning Judah, in transliteration, were from the land of burnt faces. Who looks like they come from the land of burnt faces? In this presentation called Israel in Captivity, it is not to sit there and to be melancholy or depressed or sad as the weather gets warmer in many cases, but we want to sit there and have the truth to be known, whether the truth is happy or not. When a brother teaches Hebrew classes, one of the things I try to tell the young men and women, the brothers and sisters, because I refuse to call anybody a student. That's just my style. Not saying that I was never a student, but I don't like the term. That's just me, all right? But getting back to the point, do not erase your mistake, because then you'll be able to see how you got better later on. If you erase your mistake and you increased in your knowledge and understanding, how you going to know about the bump you made? You can use that bump as a mistake to sit there and say, hey, don't make the same mistake I made. But if you're erasing it, even if it's not intentional, it might be embellishing your growth. So, in a minimalist matter, in the wicked lies that have been spread, before we get to the presentation, I'm going to be showing maps. You're welcome to take screenshots. I'm going to show what some statements have been said about us as a people. And one of the things that might be redundant in a presentation that I'm going to say now is this, for the lack of a better term. Black people sold black people. You know what the problem with that is? Black people sold black people into slavery. Yes, they did. And there will be no slavery if black people were not selling black people. Here's the problem. When you try your darndest to alleviate yourself of a crime that you participated in, and then just try to point the finger as if none points back to you, is this. The black people who were sold by black people into slavery, when they were brought to Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Panama, Honduras, Mexico, Manhattan. Oh, we going to talk about good old Fulton Street, as the brother did in the book called From Assyria to America. I asked the people to see the description. You get the link for the book itself. When they were selling them in Virginia and in North Carolina, when they were selling them in Charleston, South Carolina, black people who were sold by black people after they were shipped to the Western Hemisphere now were resold by white people to white people. So if black people were the decrepit and evil for selling other black people to white people, the same white people who bought the ill-gotten gains from out of Africa were resold. So by you trying to say, well, black people sold black people, trying to, in your darndest way, to make black people look bad, you didn't realize you selling people, which you're guilty of, making flyers about, entertaining, you're just as guilty then. You bought what was stolen. You bought who was stolen and then sold for the highest bidder. They have cast lots for my people and have sold a boy for a harlot. It's something that the Old Testament part of the Bible talks about. This is an Israelite platform. If you see the description, not only say of the video, but of the channel, this is what you will call an Old Testament-based platform. Historically, no offense intended, the part that is referred to in the Bible as the New Testament was put alongside the part of the Bible today called the Old Testament in the 5th century AD by the orders of Pope Pius II. This is why when you hear people speak historically, oh, there's 400 years between the Old and the New Testament. The Old Testament historically ends during a time when the Medes and the Persians had rule in the earth. The New Testament picks up when Rome is in power. What happened between that time? I see the comment my older brother in spirit made, saying Africans sold Israelites. And I would like to verbally explain to the family who may agree or disagree, who may understand or may not understand that statement that you see there. All black people are not monolithic, just like all white people are not monolithic. And in discussing this, not that, other peoples have to be the litmus or the catalyst or so. Well, you have black people selling black people, so the air is bad. It wouldn't happen if black people didn't sell black people. Yeah, get it right. Tell the whole story. We're going to tell the whole story because the black people that were selling black people were not the same people if we're going to tell the whole story. The black people selling black people were the children of the Hamite nations. The black people being sold to the Portuguese and the Dutch and the British, Cape Coast Castle, El Minor, Old Calabar, Boney, throughout the slave castles throughout Ghana and Nigeria. The black people being sold were the children of Israel. that fled there while we were just talking about the Roman Empire, that fled there during the time of the Greek and then later on Roman persecution. In order, brothers and sisters, for that lie to continue with that minimalist spirit, well, black people, so black people, tell the whole story. We did tell part of the story that wasn't told for many generations. Africa's not all monolithic. White people did sell white people, the English and the Irish. That's when the conversation turns to something else. I've noticed this going over this over the course of years. Stand in your own righteousness or stand in your own repentance. But do not try to minimize your participation in wickedness by saying somebody else is not righteous. If you truly care to give an apology, if it's genuine, unlike what happened with the lady shaming black people who was a police officer, I think in Arizona or some state, Ashley Gonzalez or so, by saying all kinds of stuff. If you can forgive me in any way, that's not an apology. I wish I had sat there and put that on MP4. That apology was as real as somebody just saying, I took the cookie from the cookie jar and I intend to take the cookie jar while saying it in their heart. So, as I have to sit there and plug in the plug for the computer, this is something that we care to bring out. I see a question in there saying, is that something that can be proved? Is what something that can be proved as being asked? That Africa is not monolithic, that all nations in a particular landmass are not the same? That can be proved. So when we see the question here, is that something that can be proved? What is the something that's being asked about for proof? All right. My older brother in spirit wrote, whites discriminated against whites in America, English, Irish. Absolutely. Right. And they're still all white. So are they all one and the same? And not to be funny, is that a black people problem? See, you trying to say, whoever you are, black people, so black people, as if you got to sit there and then we, the white Christians, and they actually will come out at their face and say stuff like that. We've helped, we fought, there's no more slavery in America, and we sat there and, well, you helped start it, and because you didn't continue it for X amount of time, you want a biscuit? That would be like me saying, for those who follow my platform, when I was a child, I was a thief. And I don't steal no more. But that's something that I had to work on myself, from being a child to being an adult and not doing that. Nobody here should be in my Cash App saying, you know what, brother, because you stopped doing wickedness and stealing when you was a little kid and you don't do that no more, here's $1. What? You don't sit there and look for that if you're truly apologetic. So, Ham sold Israel. Well, biblically, that's a proven fact because it talks about that in the book of Joel when it said the people of Philistia have sold the children of Judah to the Greeks. Philistia, in part, were not all of the children of Ham, but all were Hamites, selling Judah, who was part of the Israelites, to the Greeks, who were part of the European nations. And that's in Joel chapter 3 or chapter 4, whether you have the Masoretic text of the Tanakh, the said Old Testament, or the King James Version, you read about the Hamitic nations, namely Philistia, selling the children of Judah to the Europeans, the Greeks are the sons of Javan or Yawan, the Ionians of ancient world. So that is one point reading the Bible in Joel where it speaks upon that. Another matter concerning that is what we're going to show in the presentation too, and proof about who sold who to whom and so forth. So I do appreciate the question. And again, I know I ask ever so often, if I can be heard well, please press the number 4. Thank you. About to get started. Thank you. Let us pull up the PowerPoint. Again, questions are welcomed. All right. Danitepublications.com. Giving honor to our maker. This presentation is brought to you by Danitepublications.com. The website is the same name. We can be reached at 908-587-4841. Care to donate, one can do so by Cash App, $Mored23, $MOREH23, $MOREH23. Thank you for that, family. You can reach me again at 908-587-4841, text, WhatsApp, or regular call. Thank you. The asiento, a contract for allowing the subjects of Great Britain the liberty to import Negroes into Spanish America, signed by the Catholic King at Madrid, the 25th day of March, 1713. Printed by John Basket, 1713. Why does, if we're using, brothers and sisters, the particular matter of the laser pointer, the 1713 stand out? That's before the United States of America. The United States legally did not exist, brothers and sisters, until 1776. So if we're talking about something dated to 1713, and we're talking about Madrid, which is Spain, the 25th day of March, Great Britain, which is England, the liberty, not righteousness, but the liberty of importing Negroes into Spanish America. So you had the British, the English, working with and alongside the Spaniards to bring Negroes, which is blacks, into Spanish America. What is Spanish America of today? In part, correct me if I'm wrong, Florida, which was never an American colony. It became an American state in 1845. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, which went from Spain to France, France, Spain kind of matter. The area of Mexico, going all the way up by where we call California. Did they have black people there? Not after the matter of the 1650s, because there was so much rebellion going on. But this we see right here, brothers and sisters. The asiento is a Spanish word meaning seat, like what you sit on. And they were given for England, Great Britain, the liberty by Spain to do that kind of crime. Let's continue and see what else we can show out. To be sold on board the ship. I could never get that word. On Tuesday, the 6th of May next, at Ashley Ferry, a choice cargo of about 200 fine, healthy Negroes just arrived from the Windward and Rice Coast. The utmost care has already been taken and shall be continued to keep them free from the least danger of being infected with the smallpox. No boat having been on board, and all other communication with the people from Charlestown prevented. Austin Lawrence and Appleby. Charlestown, that sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, South Carolina. Am I mistaken in location, geographically? Because Lawrence was a leader in the government and the slave trade in a place called Charleston, South Carolina. Full one half of the above Negroes have had the smallpox in their own country. So according to this, the Negroes were brought to another country in a certain date, on a certain day, just arrived from the Windward and Rice Coast. Now, there's two things to point out in this. Let's remember, not trying to lead the witness, but let's remember Windward and Rice Coast and Negroes and to be sold. Because remember, they tried to, well, black people sold black people. And that was the worst thing that could ever happen on the earth, you know? But two things happened. The people who were sold by other black people, as pointed out by my older brother in spirit, were not the same ethnic group of black people. That's one thing. Secondly, the black people were sold, were resold. So if the people who was doing the initial selling were wicked, you continued in that same wickedness. We already pointed that out. That's another thing to point out. And we also want to point out where it says, just arrived from the Windward and Rice Coast. Savannah planter merchants who received and sold West Africans from rice-growing regions. Origin of Africans. Gambia and Sierra Leone. Gambia, Rice Coast, Sierra Leone, Gambia, Box Island, Africa, Windward Coast, Isle of Goree, Senegal, name of firm, Inglis and Hall, Clay and Hebersham, John Graham, Inglis and Hall, John Graham, Craig McLeod and Company, Joseph Clay, Robert Watts, Cowper or Cowper and Telfair, Robert Watts, Broughton, and Smith. Quantity sold from as much as 667 to 78, all over 50, and part of quantity sold, and from the region of the time frame 1765 to 1771. That right there, Inward Slaves Manifest, Savannah, out of Washington, D.C., you get this kind of information. Why does this become important? We want to show where is the Rice Coast. Right here. People in slavery. Ghana, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Benin. All of this area here, according to this, is the Rice Coast. So when we go back to this thing here that says Negroes just arrived from the Windward and Rice Coast, because F and S at one point was interchangeable in linguistics, where were the people from? FBA, Foundational Black Americans. I need you to answer that, because when I had a discussion before I was blocked by some of them online, the only person who agreed with you, well, we don't know if that thing that you showed is real as far as a slave advertisement, was the white woman who wanted to deny that Alexander Falconbridge was a doctor in the 1780s on a slave ship. You understand? When your mentality says only 20 people were brought to Virginia, what you're saying is, the world, and forget those 20 people who were mothers, fathers, somebody's children, somebody's relative, just 20 on the ship called the White Lion. But I have a question to ask about the 20 people brought to Virginia in that time in 1619. What made John Hope comfortable to bring black people to John Wolfe in the 17th century, the same century that the Dutch and the English had a problem? If John Wolfe was of the British and John Hope was the part of the Dutch, I received 20 odd Negroes from a Dutch man of war. What made this Dutch man of war comfortable to even bring any black people as captives to another person, unless the slave trade was in his knowledge already going on? See, when you try to deal with those who are dealing in minimalist matters, and no disrespect, one, two, as brother's been pointing out, hijack the feather culture of saying we are indigenous and I ain't accepting nothing about, being no slave and my people over 300 years. I'm going to put this feather hat on and I'm going to sit there and say that Pocahontas is my people because I ain't no slave, nigga. That is where that spirit comes from. You don't want to sit there and have to deal with the sad reality of matter. It's romanticism. Who was ruling before the Columbian era? So everybody was a king, a melek, huh? Everybody was in Spanish a rein, or a reina, or a queen. Everybody in Hebrew was a melek or a malka, huh? There was nobody who was the keeper of the door, the wardrobe. There was nobody that was the person that was part of the porter crew. There was nobody that was there just being the babysitters. No. There were no doulas. There were no midwives. Everybody was just king and queen, huh? That's what it is. That's crazy. Danitepublications is not letting that ride. It's not to talk tough, disrespectful, raise my voice. I apologize to self. But one of the things in the scriptures, it says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Anytime somebody is going to try to minimalize a matter after, not to get too personal, my two youngest sisters brought me down to Virginia and said, for those who do know a brother's part government, this was the Hutchinson plantation where we were at. Are we serious? You're not telling me that I'm part of the Pocahontas. No disrespect to her and what happened with her. Just the same. You're not going to tell me that all black people must have been related to Sarah Bartman. May she rest in peace for the violence that happened to her. You got to understand that you being one person belong to one people. And if you understand yourself as Israel and of the 12 tribes of Israel, and part of it distinctly says, if you claim Dan like myself, Dan shall judge Dan Yadin Amo Kashebet Akat Yisrael. Dan shall judge, aka avenge, his people as one of the tribes of Israel. That whole minimalist thing of saying there was only 5% of white people having slaves, we're going to smash that. That is a lie, because you wouldn't have a whole war based on only 5% of an economy. That just doesn't even make any sense. You're not going to sit there and sacrifice your men like Jefferson Davis and Alexander Stephens. We will sit there and die to the last man in the South to maintain what we about. These guys would have not gone that hard if it was only for 5% of the economy. Then it was 3.6 I read on one meme. Then it was 1.6. What? You're trying to lower the numbers down. We not letting that rock on the platform, brothers and sisters. That's not going to operate. Somebody is going to speak to the truth of that matter. Somebody is going to make logic and common sense of the matter, because the minimalists are ridiculous. Let's continue, family. And here we see the Windward Coast. So here we have, brothers and sisters, Windward and Rice Coast. Negroes just arrived from, so we wanted to show where the Rice Coast was, and we want to show where the Windward Coast was. And that's where the people were taken from and brought over to the Western Hemisphere. That is something not to be sad, not to be redundant, but we care to sit there and bring out for reference purposes. Thank you for that, family. Dan in West Africa. There's a tribe that call themselves Dan or Don in West Africa. Let's see what they say of themselves. Can we say that the ancient tribe of Dan of the Israelites carried that name with them when traveling to West Africa? Question mark. Dan in the Bible was known for making idols, sadly, as does the Dan people in Western Africa, sadly. See, Jewish man? As my brother Kazak was speaking about Judaism and Jewish and things of that kind of nature earlier in his presentation, right? Excellent presentation, brother. If you're still on, that video was excellent that I saw earlier. One of the things Jewish people try to do regarding quote unquote the black Hebrew Israelites is say, well, you all were in Islam before. You all were in Christianity before. So how can you possibly be these people who were given the laws about not worshiping idols and having doctrines that's not of the Mosaic law, of the laws of Moses? Jeroboam put up idols in Israel. And no disrespect, Solomon did it before him. Do you know, Jewish man, who made the first idol in Israel? Does anybody in the chat know who made the first idol, IDOL, in the scriptures? Once it came down to after the children of Israel's existence. I'm asking. Who was the first idol maker among the Israelites? Is my question. Anybody in the chat? I pulled down the thing so I could sit there and see. Because Solomon did. No, he wasn't the first. Jeroboam did. He wasn't the first. So to the Jewish people who want to sit there and come and say to us as, quote, the black Hebrew Israelites, well, if you and, you know, your grandparents was doing it, thank you. Aaron, as my brother or sister, I don't know your gender. Sorry about that. Learned in 2000. Aaron was the first idol maker in the scriptures among the house of Israel. Do you know who Aaron was? He was the older brother of Moses. Well, you know, the people bent on evil. All right. And they gave me this thing and I threw it in there and out came this calf. Levites, y'all have a difficult time to make up a lie, which is not a bad thing. The story that Aaron gave about the people, first you're going to blame the people. It ain't me. You understand? Listen. All right. They bent on evil. You already know that, right, Moshe? All right, you know that. They try to give us both a hard time. And so I said, you know, break your, you know, not trying to sound gangster like California, no offense to Cali. You understand? Like break off your golden earrings. And I threw it in there. Yeah, I did. And out came this. I listen, it's all, hey, Aaron, the story, no disrespect, does not rock with the truth. And at the end of that chapter, it says, as Aaron made. So I say that not to disrespect Aaron, whom I'm not on his level. He being, as my older brother in spirit pointed out, being the high priest. Aaron was high priest. I'm not on that level. My brother Kazak was talking about the position of the tribe of the Levites earlier in his presentation. You have a very serious thing. And I don't mean always say my teacher say, but one of the things that I agree with that I've been taught is Aaron may have been scared out of his mind. You understand? But Jewish man, when you try to say that our grandparents in America or the Caribbean worshiped JC or Jesus, may have been indoctrinated with the understanding of Islam, egg pork, who knows if grandfather in the yard was sleeping with another man's wife, for all we know. No disrespect to our immediate ancestors, for those who do know some of the history. You understand? But your stance is because we, the said African-American, West Indian in the Western Hemisphere, are in part saying we are the children of Israel. And your claim is they was worshiping idols. They don't even speak Hebrew. The people that came back that the brother Kazak, my brother Rob Kazak was talking about in the time of Ezra, they ain't speak Hebrew either. They were married to foreign wives too. And the old temple that Solomon built, no disrespect to him, had idols in it too. So idolatry can't be the reason why you of the 12 tribes are not. It means more so if you righteous or not. Being Israel don't make you righteous. Israel's deeds make them righteous or wicked. You understand? So that story does not sit there, or that explanation, does not sit there and hold up in that particular case. So when we go back here, and I wanted to go over, and it says, I think I pulled it up on the screen. Cool. Well, they worshiped idols. Israel did, sadly. We as the Israelites don't sit there and claim something different. We don't try to romanticize. To put it in modern times, not trying to talk gangster or violent, say Shibboleth. If the person in Judges chapter 12 said Shibboleth, they were stabbing son to death, man. Do you know there were Israelites in the scriptures that based upon how you spoke, They were putting people to death in the Bible in Judges 12. What is the difference, sadly, between that craziness and people in Chicago? If you wear your hat to the side, it means you're a different gang and they want to roll up and put one to death. That is ridiculous. All these curses shall come upon thee. It shall pursue and overtake thee. So Shibboleth and Siboleth, which cause people to sit there and be at odds with each other, is just as dumb and unintelligent, not bright or smart, as people saying, yo, if you wear your hat a certain way, this way, that means you from a different neighborhood. So I got to, what? It's ridiculous. We, the House of Israel, we said black people, whether you say you're from Chicago, do not sit there and clap hands along with that. That is nothing to sit there and be praised for. You understand? We do not sit there and think to condone the Epstein thing by saying, oh, Kelly, should be. No, if you're wicked, you're wicked. If you're guilty, you're guilty. But when you can't stand on your own righteousness, and every comparison you must make be to someone who is wicked, that says something of your character. You understand? So let's look at this. We want to point out that Dan were known as they who migrated to parts for peace, though they themselves were not always about peace. Let's continue. Let's see what we can come up with from research in the matter. The matter of Dan in West Africa. Dan, an ethno-linguistic grouping of people inhabiting the mountains of West Central Côte d'Ivoire. If I mispronounce it, let me know. And in adjacent areas of Liberia. The Dan belonged to the southern branch of the Mende linguistic subgroup of the Niger-Congo language family. The Geo or Dan people is an ethnic group in the northeastern Liberia and in Côte d'Ivoire. Mispronounce it, let me know, please. There are approximately 350,000 members of the group united by the Dan language and Mende language, also called Geo or Jayo or Yakuba. Yakuba sound like Jacob. Who knows? Meaning Jacob. An ethno-linguistic grouping of peoples inhabiting, and it goes on to be redundant in this particular matter about the Mende, the Mandingo, and so forth. Brothers and sisters, why did I go into this part here? Could it be, brothers and sisters, that the people who went from Zorah and Eshtaol in Joshua and in the book of Judges and went to where Zidon was in the land of Lashem, and named the land Dan after Dan their father. And after Dan and the other tribes were dispersed from the land, did they take their name along with them where they went? That's a question asked. See, when the Jewish rabbis in the 16th century said that the tribe of Dan and the tribe of Gad were in Ethiopia, not many people question that. I'm asking about the people in Western Africa that say Dan, could it be connected to the ancient house of Israel? That's a proposed question I'm asking. Let's continue, family. The Romans who were important to the Israelites are as follows. Let's look and see what we're talking about. Again, given on a human level, respect to my brother Rob Kazak, who spoke about some of these people that's on this list. Pompey was the first Roman to set foot in the Israelite temple. Julius Caesar gave Israelite lands away to the Edomites. Stop. Who was in cahoots with who? Who was Herod's dad? Antipater, the friend of Julius Caesar? Who was Herod's grandson, Agrippa, friends with Claudius and Caligula? The Edomites and the Romans were buddies. And again, the presentation my brother Rob Kazak did is excellent. Check the channel out. Brother, if you here, take the time out and put the name on the channel so people can sit there and see it. All right, for those interested. Let's continue on, family. Augustus made the Israelites in Alexandria, Egypt, pay taxes. You know who didn't pay taxes during the time of Augustus? The Israelites that was selling out, teaching about Roman gods being a true God. And in Christianity, the doctrine of Rome, certainly by the time of the Nicene Council and Constantine, we see the mega churches of today and others don't pay taxes because they rather lose money and make sure Israel is worshiping their gods. Tiberius took advice from Sargenis to destroy the Israelites. Caligula wanted his image in the temple. His hope did not happen. Claudius defeated Britain and was friends with the Edomites. Yeah, the grandchildren of Herod. Nero slew as many Israelites as he could. Do you know what it says about the timing with Nero and Israel in books on history? That fist fights were common. In quote, for the lack of a better term, to cite the book by Mary Smallwood, exactly, the Jews had the upper hand. So if the byword Jew was already being used, and it said that they had the upper hand in fist fights against the Romans, we see why Rome had to go underground in order to try to get into the temple in the first place. Vespasian, sent by Nero, he attacked the Israelites and Gentiles in Israel. Titus attempted to rid the world of the seed of David. Domitian made circumcision illegal for the Israelites. Trajan suppressed the uprising in the Kittos battle. Hadrian suppressed the uprising in the Bar Kokhba battle. What are we pointing out? We want to talk a little bit about the Trajan matter. In the timing of 115 to 117 AD, or 115 to 117 CE, Israelites were in a place today called Libya, and they rose up against their Roman oppressors and wanted to go back to their homeland, but they were not allowed to do so. And they were defeated by the army of Trajan of Rome. Why was it so important for them to get the true Israelites out? Who were they doing business with? We pointed out all right, looking at here, the laser pointer, Edomites, friends with Claudius. Edomites, friends with Julius Caesar. Herod's dad was a guy named Antipater. During the time when you read about what happened with Augustus, the first Roman emperor, and Mark Antony being the husband of Cleopatra, right? Both of them having committed suicide in time. Augustus, whose name was Octavian before, assumed position and power eventually over Rome. The Edomites were still friends. Antipater's son, Herod, was friends with Augustus. The grandson, Caligula, and great-grandson Claudius, or should I not even direct son, but successor, the grandchildren of Herod, Agrippa, and so on, were friends with Caligula and Claudius. So who was in the Romans' ears to make sure the children of Israel were gentrified, for the lack of a better term, from the land? Good old Esau. And then the Edomites wound up acquiring the land. That is something we wanted to point out in that particular case. So again, on this platform, brothers and sisters, screenshots are welcome. All right? So we want to, I'm glad that the brother put it there. Praise be the Most High, Todah, Aki. Thank you, my brother. Peace and blessings. The name of the room is called Commandment Keepers EHC2. We're going to type that in. It's called Commandment Keepers EHC2. That's my brother Kazak's platform. All right. The man's been a friend of mine before most of us, like him and I, to my knowledge at least, was really pumping hard on the internet. All right. Not to get too personal, but that's the brother's platform, Commandment Keepers EHC2. And like I stated, excellent citations, excellent reasoning, and so forth. Check out the man's platform. All right. So we're going to keep that there. Screenshot. Okay. And then we're going to put it back up before the presentation is concluded. But when you look at these Roman guys that we see right here, screenshot, look them up and see what influence they had, sadly, though, with Israel. Let's continue, family. Hung in Assyria and America. There's a book called Without Sanctuary, that speaks about the lynching history in America. And then there's Ralph Ginsburg's book called 100 Years of Lynchings. 5,000 recorded within, say, a century. We believe in my family, one of our relatives was one. But brothers and sisters, when we look at this particular matter right here, hung in Assyria and America, these people in America sent postcards about that. And when you look on the left-hand side, you have it to where the Assyrians were impaling people that were of the southern kingdom of Judah. They made artwork out of this, brothers and sisters. When you read, not to sound nasty, but when you read in the scriptures, when Samson said, "Let me die before the nations make sport of me." When you read the same thing about King Zedekiah and they made sport of him, do you know what that is talking about? Correct me if I am wrong. It said that Abimelech saw Isaac and Rebekah making sport. So when people like Zedekiah and before that, Samson is saying, at least the nations make sport of me, what do you think they're talking about? Did you know the president before Abraham Lincoln was a said homosexual and a slave master? Do you know where we're going? They were buck breaking black men then, just like the nations were buck breaking the sons of Israel back then. Nasty. Yes. That is an actual fact, brothers and sisters. When you read, brothers and sisters, about the situation in 71, 72, 73 AD, Israelites were saying at the Masada matter, 1, 2, 3, and then stab each other to death. Least the nations come and, for the lack of a better term, take our manhood. They rather die than to sit there and go out like that. When you watch the movie, for what it is worth, Colombo, about the Maroons that were in Palmares in Brazil, under the leadership of Zumbi das Palmares, for those who do know what happened in the 17th century in Brazil. The women and the men rather jump off the mountain to their death before they'll be a slave. Because you know what happened in those kind of matters. So this is not, again, to sit there and bring up something sad or anything of that sort, but rather for understanding and historical purposes. Assyria, we're going to talk about and continue and wrap it up. Let's understand some dates. Assyria took Israel in 721 BCE. Babylon defeated Assyria 609 BCE. Babylon took Judah 586 BC. Remember, you can screenshot this, brothers and sisters. We on the platforms, Mordeh Yeshaya Torah lessons, Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons, and Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons too. Babylon took Judah in 586 BCE. Persia defeated Media in 550 BCE and Babylon in 538 BCE. We want to point that out. Why do we want to point out? The brother Kazak went over the book of Daniel earlier in his presentation, and we got his room listed there, right? Let's look. Laser pointer. Historically, please pay attention. Not trying to sound like somebody is a child in the group or in the audience. I don't like the word student. But please, let's understand something. It said in Daniel chapter 7, verse 5, right? If we can go there. I would like to go there, please. All right. First in 734, yes. Regarding Assyria, yes. Yes, thank you for that. This is right information. When I said, thank you, my brother, Learn in 2000. First in 734, yes, because you had the situation that happened with Naphtali, and you had the situation also with Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh on the east side of the Jordan with Tiglath-Pileser. Absolutely right. In the book of Kings, Pul, P-U-L, is the Assyrian king. Pulu in Babylon ruled the same person, was also called Tiglath-Pileser. You are absolutely right. When I posted just now saying 721, 722, I was talking about the final matter of what happened with Assyria there in that case. Not addressing yet the matter at 701 between Sennacherib and the matter with King Hezekiah. But take that info down too, family. All right. Thank you for that. See, this is how we build, brothers and sisters. I would like to was going into a scriptures in this particular Sargon. Okay, let me ask you a question with that. When you say Sargon, right? Let me ask you this, because we both are learned men. Did Sargon do it and another person took the credit? Question. See, because the reason why I mentioned, because Sargon of Assyria is mentioned in the Bible in Isaiah chapter 20. You understand? So it says in the year that Sargon died, X, Y, and Z happened. So was it regarding the matter of the Assyrian king? You had Tiglath-Pileser, you had Sennacherib eventually, you had Shalmaneser with that. Between Shalmaneser and Sargon, let me ask you, did one do it and the other king took the credit? That's a question I have. Thank you for that. Now, let's look at this, family. All right. If we were to, okay, I remember where I wanted to go. Thank you for that, family. We want to go to Daniel, right? Chapter 7, Hebrew, Makon. I don't know why we brothers say our presentation is going to be for an hour or two. We need to stop lying one to another and ourselves, knowing good and well that the presentation may go longer than that. And I don't say that to be disrespectful. Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And it says this, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Now, it says this beast stood on one side, right? Now, let's go, brothers and sisters, if we will, right? If we go to Isaiah, I think I can do it from here. Isaiah 21, and let's see what it says. Nope, can't do it that way. So I'm going to go Isaiah 21 over here to make it line upon line, precept upon precept. All right, which in Isaiah didn't mean the best thing, but Israelites have been saying it, and I'll explain what I mean by that in another matter. Isaiah chapter 21, verse 1, the burden of the wilderness of the sea, as whirlwinds in the south sweeping on, it coming from the wilderness, a dreadful land. A grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoiler spoilers. Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Media, all the sign thereof I have made to cease. So we read Elam, which is Persia, and Media, brothers and sisters, which are the Medes. So the Medes and the Persians are the people we see in Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. The bear on one side in Daniel 7, verse 5 means between the Medes and the Persians, you had the Persians that were stronger politically, socially, economically, and other matters than that of the Medes. Why do I point that out in this particular matter is this. If we are looking, and it says, Persia defeated Media in 550 BCE and Babylon in 538 BCE. Persia allowed some Israelites to go back to the land in 538. Why do I want to point that out? Because by the time the Medes and the Persians came in contact with the children of Israel, they were one empire and one kingdom. Sometimes people may say Daniel chapter 7 is Babylon, then Persia, then Media, then Greece. Not so. We have to understand the Israelite prophet Daniel, being of the tribe of Judah, from the seed of David, he's going to give a historical context that will relate mainly to his people. So when you read in Daniel chapter 12, and it says, Michael, the great prince that stands for the children of your people, this is not to be biased, but it's focused primarily on Daniel's people in Daniel chapter 7 as well. So by the time historically, the Medes and the Persians were politically, economically, and socially an empire in unison, it happened before they met the children of Israel. In this case, 550 BCE was in part when the Persians and Medes were doing what they were doing and becoming a kingdom. All right. When Cyrus II dealt what he dealt with the Median king. All right. And defeated Babylon in 538. Brothers and sisters, when you get into the matter of Daniel, again, chapter 7, it said this, verse 5, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. The 3 ribs in the mouth is Babylon in 538, Egypt in 525, and the matter of Lydia, brothers and sisters, which date I'll forget at the present moment. So you had Lydia, Media, Persia, and Babylon all under the hegemony or rule of the Medes and the Persians by the time they came in contact with the house of Israel. You understand? So, and this is actually recorded by the historian Herodotus for those who like outside source material. But I want to sit there and go back, if we will, brothers and sisters. Sorry about that. Brothers and sisters, looking at it from this point, right? My brother learning in this manner. Okay. Wrote, Shalmaneser the fifth died. He didn't take captives. Then Sargon II took over. Some believe they both did it. That is why I wanted to ask, because I've read that both did. Some say Sargon II did it. It's hard to know because Sargon destroyed a lot of Shalmaneser the fifth records. All right. So thank you for that. Because see, when you start dealing with kingdoms and kings that ruled at the same time, sometimes another king could try to take the credit of another. And sometimes some of them just like, I'm gonna give it to my mans and you can sit there and have that, kind of thing. So, looking at it in that particular case. Thank you for that info from what you gathered. Appreciate it. So now, brothers and sisters, when we look back at this right here, right? It says Persia defeated by Greece in 331 BCE. Greece under the matter after Alexander, the Ptolemies having ruled over Israel from 320 BCE until 198 BCE when Scopas was defeated by Antiochus III. That battle between the people of the Ptolemies and the Seleucids is recorded in the book of the Apocrypha, brothers and sisters. When you go on the platform, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, again, on the platform, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, there is a presentation by the name of From Jerusalem to the Hood. That's the name of the video. You can type it in when you get the time. It's called From Jerusalem to the Hood. It's a 6-series video matter. It's also on a playlist. From Jerusalem to the Hood, part 4. Under the platform, Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, I detail the matter of every war recorded between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. So just wanted to point that out, if we will. Brothers and sisters, thank you for the time. Let's see if we may, brothers and sisters, let's see if we can. From Jerusalem to the Hood, in this particular matter, let's see if that shows in this. All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's right here. So copy. Thank you for the time, family. We're going to look at this. Put this right here. If we will, you can screenshot that. Ptolemy the first, second, third. Ptolemy the seventh. We're going to, brothers and sisters, there's a reason why we're doing this. All right, new slide. If we go back here to the presentation called From Jerusalem to the Hood, this is the part I wanted to show in this manner, detailing the battles between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, if we will, right? In this case here. Thank you for the time, family, with that. And what we see again, you can screenshot this and research the matter on your own. All right? The Seleucids and Ptolemies were not friends. Ptolemy won. Seleucid won. Seleucid win. Ptolemy win. Seleucid win. The timing too, when the Ptolemies and the Seleucids were fighting, now mind you, this is white on white stuff, not trying to be racial. They also had battles against the Romans. All right. First Macedonian War, no win. Second Macedonian War, Rome won. So now we begin to see Rome coming up in there between this time 200 to 196 BCE. Seleucid battle, Rome won. Third Macedonian War, 168 becomes important. All right. This gets into later on the timing of Hanukkah. All right. Rome won. Fourth Macedonian War, won by Rome. So you can screenshot this. Now, when we take it back to here, brothers and sisters, and it says the Ptolemies had ruled over Israel from 320 to 198 BCE, when Scopas was defeated by Antiochus III. This battle that we just talked about with Scopas and Antiochus III is, brothers and sisters, right here. This is it that we just see now bold in that case. All right. For those interested, what am I saying and what happened? Getting back into this matter here. All right. Slideshow from current slide. The Seleucids and the Ptolemies, who were at odds, that we see here, 320 to 198 BCE, the matter with Antiochus III, and Greece lost to Rome in two parts, 168 BCE, we read that, in a Pydna battle when Paulus defeated Perseus, won at 146 BCE, which leads you also into the timing of what happened with the people in Carthage. All right, when Mummius defeated the Greeks in the Third Corinth battle. So you had it. What going on is this: the successors of Alexander, the Ptolemies, had rule in Egypt and Israel. Okay, the Seleucids had rule in Israel after defeating the Ptolemies. The Seleucids then had drama with Rome, and then Rome came to power. So now, as detailed in the brother's book, Egypt Talk and Writing, you get into more information what happened between Pompey and the Ptolemies and so forth and so on. All right. So just wanted to point that out and show the timeline. Screenshots were welcome for those who were interested in this particular case. What are we saying? Israel, in part and in truth, was not a religion. You could connect the dots and see how that goes. Now, when you see the Old Testament timeline, end of the Old Testament, you have the prophets Zechariah, Haggai, and Malachi. And as my brother Rob Kazak pointed out earlier, You had the matter with Ezra and where Ezra was coming from in the land of Babylon. Prior to that, you had Daniel. The brother also spoke about Jeremiah and Israelites that were in Egypt, and so forth and so on. So the timing of the Old Testament ends in the 5th century BCE, long before Greece done came to power after Media Persia. So if this timeline is right in saying 430 BCE is the end of the Old Testament, and Greece is the great European / white empire, how is the Old Testament part of the Bible, the white man book? No, it's not. The major nations, the wicked nations, the good nations, the repentant nations, the corrupt nations in the Old Testament were black. The Babylonians that it said, happy a day that dash your child against the stone, Nebuchadnezzar was a black man. The one in Jeremiah called evil Marduk was a black dude. Jehoiakim, who gets praised in the scriptures in the book of 2 Kings 19, was a black dude. So this is, again, not to be racial or anything of that kind of sort, but just to point out, because of the minimalists, we have to sit there and, for those who are interested, bring this out. Thank you for the time, family, in this nature. We show that. Take screenshots for those who were interested. A history of the American people. How's everybody doing? We hope, we pray that everybody is well and will be better. All right, family? So if I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. I know some people have told me, believe it or not, Brother Yeshaya, you seem to be going all over the place. I've been told that before. This is why I ask for constructive criticism. This is why I ask for people let me know how it is. That's why I okay in my way to have people take screenshots and put my number up there if there's any more questions in that particular manner and so forth. All right. So thank you, my older brother in spirit, it's all good, for typing in the number 4 in that case. All right. Thank you for typing that in, my brother or sister. I don't know your gender when I see Learning 2000. All right. Thank you for that, my friend, in that particular case. It helps us as YouTube content creators when the brothers and or sisters sit there and let their presence be known. All right. It helps us in many cases be motivated in that particular case. We're going to have a song and then we're going to continue on in the presentation. Thank you for that, family. Sorry, this song we playing is called Kwadosh Yah, meaning Yah is holy. All right, I'll translate the rest of the song after it's played. Shalom. Thank you for the time, family. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Thank you for that. Again, Wadosha means Yah is holy. The word Hallelujah. Hallelujah means praise Yah. Hallel is the command form. Yah means thank Yah. Rakum Yah means Yah is merciful. Yah Eli means Yah is my God. Yah is my power. So if I can be heard well, again, and people are in good spirits, we asking you, brothers and sisters, to thank you for those who did already. Hit the number 4 and so forth and so on. I want to take this time out now, not divergent from the presentation, but about, and then nobody's perfect, about having a clean nose. And what do I mean by that? A brother wrote books. I did a presentation last month about the 10-year anniversary of the book called Egypt Talking Writing. And I'm happy to say that though I talk about my childhood and having been a thief as a child, which is something not to be proud of, brothers and sisters, but I am no longer that now. If I was, and people sent me PayPal, and people sent me Cash App, and people sent me Western Union at one point, how will it look if there's video showing receipts and I went out like that guy No Light or Polite, acting like you mailing something when you wasn't mailing anything, and people never received the item that they paid for, but they showing they paid for it but never received it because you a thief? Well, you gotta sit there and blame them. I no longer steal, family. Something good to say. And it's nothing to sit there and make light of, because a thief is a coward and a punk. A robber is just straight more wicked. You steal from your relatives. Mommy beat my butt. I'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go outside next week anyway. That just go to show you the mindset of it being wicked. But when you see your friends in the store holding up things because they stole from the store, it don't look good. This Trump thing going on with the phone, and people paid for the Trump phone and not getting it, like polite, it don't look good. So now when you have a matter and a spot, no disrespect intended, being blown on that lady who calls herself Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, and the only person that's online defending you is a known scammer named Umar Johnson, that's sad. You don't have to put doctor in front of your name in order to sit there and get repertoire and respect. Speaking as an author of a book, I went on her Amazon page about the book that came out that she wrote this month, released in May 12th, and most of the comments was, "You're not a real doctor. You're not a real doctor. You a fake. You a phony." Of course, you're going to have haters, But when the majority is just saying you are fake, you're a phony, you're not a real one, and this, that, and the third, it does not look good. And your defender online, if you're a doctor because you say you are, I'm going to say it too. Brothers, men, excuse me, no disrespect. Kissing a female's behind is not going to get her to love you. I'm not having a college degree myself. I'm not on it like you got to sit there and call me this because of that. Nah. My college degree doesn't even have anything to do with history for those who do know. You understand? I just have a passion personally and a love for history and linguistics. My degree that I have has nothing to do with linguistics or history. You understand? So it is foolish then to sit there and be on it by saying, this is who I am. And I ain't got to prove nothing to you. Run away from the people who feel they ain't got to prove nothing to you. Because everyone on the platform that's listening, sharing the platform, and I see the analytics, some different places or whatever that people watch, sometimes when the monies come in, the royalties as it's called, right? And it be from people buying the Hebrew books in England or wherever else. And the currency has to be changed to USD or US dollars. And all the people who sat there and sent the Cash App or the PayPal. And a brother can say, I don't have to sit there and hope nobody finds out. See, I went through that when I was 7, 8 years old. I hope mommy don't ask for the receipt. Goofball. You understand? But when you're doing them same kind of things over the age of 40, it's ridiculous. You know? And people work too hard and spend too much time to be swindled and disrespected. So, sisters, not being sexist, don't go out disrespecting yourself like that lady, Cheyenne Bryant, that said, doctor. Brothers, don't go out like that guy, Umar Johnson. That's not the road we're supposed to travel. This ain't to be preachy. It's just the truth. All right? So let's continue, family, in this particular matter right here. We hope and pray everybody is well and will be better. All right? So let's look at this here. If it will pull up, let me know from current slide. All righty. In the 1440s, exploring the African coast from their newly acquired islands, the Portuguese rediscovered slavery as a working commercial institution. The Portuguese entered the slave trade in the mid-15th century, that's the 1400s, took it over. Stop. Who did they take it over from? Arab. Let's continue. And in the process, transformed it into something more impersonal and horrible than it had been either in antiquity or in medieval Africa. So when you find people saying that the slave trade that the Portuguese and other Europeans started is worse than what the world knew, that's what they're talking about. When the trade was in its infancy, several hundred slaves were shipped to Lisbon, which is the capital of Portugal. As the sugar industry expanded, slaves began to be numbered in thousands. By 1550, some 50,000 African slaves had been imported into Saint Tome alone, which likewise became a slave entrepot. So, brothers and sisters, where people were shipped to, we're talking from the matter of the 1440s, and by 1550, that's already over 100 years of dealing with captives. Let's continue, family. Now, this is what the conversations I've had with some people. I'm going to identify the statements that came to me and the statements that I gave back. This is to me. You need to look into where the slaves came from and who first sold them. So you got to put who first sold them, because we already went over the fact of them being resold. Let's continue. I've read, this is my reply. I read about that, even looked into the apology that say African leaders in 2013 made to black people in the West. Let me ask, Clinton and Bush Jr. to apologize for slavery. Should I look into who resold the black people after the black people, were brought to the United States? I mean, if you are telling me that what I, quote, need to do in looking things up, there were people who were slaves who later, after the Civil War, were interviewed. Some of the accounts did not include being kidnapped by blacks and sold. Did you know that? People these days are telling others what others need to do. Wow. Because if you look at this statement right here, to me, it was saying what you need to do. Excuse me? Who are we talking to like that? I didn't know that's how adults should even address each other. But be open to constructive criticism. And then in doing so, when you find a thing called a book called Voices from Slavery, 1,000 or authentic slave narratives. This book is on Amazon. And in it, it talks about them being kidnapped. All the accounts of the people taken from Africa in that book don't say that they were sold by other, quote, black people. So, research. Next. That's all good, brother. This is the statement to me now. That's all. Now I'm a brother. That's all good, brother. Just making sure you know who blame. As for me, my family never owned slaves. And neither have I. Let me ask you this. Do you know who was the last group of people were to release their slaves? Or who was the first slave owner in the United States was? This is my reply to that. I heard the story lie. I heard the sorry lie online about Anthony Johnson being the first slave owner in the United States. For some people online, this might seem redundant, but let's listen if you care to. I heard that say like 8 years ago. Then I realized studying clothing history, the picture they showed us was not even popular dress in the US at that time. Not nitpicking, the USA did not even exist in name at the time of Anthony Johnson, who died in 1670. In the book, The Slave Trade by Hugh Thomas, I read of the matter in 1619 with the Dutch man of war, who was given 20 Negroes, who of those 20, there were 15 bought by George Yardley, who was the governor of Virginia, and he passed away in 1627. So studying that alone taught me that the online push of saying a black man was the first pioneer, start of being the slave owner was false. I do not know you. I was not attempting to assassinate the character of any living, breathing, talking human on this page, because this is from a conversation online. So to say you never owned slaves, we know that. Today, those who enslave and even mistreat people are incarcerated. This is what happens with pimps. Did you know a lot of pimps get life because of what they do? Here is what the online people in many cases care to promote as the first slave owner in the United States was. That was my reply. If this is to be taken as true, we have to ask who were the judges who granted Anthony Johnson such a matter? The first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. In 1654, it was time for Anthony to release John Caser, a black indentured servant. Instead, Anthony told Caser he was extending his time. Caser left and became employed by the free white man, Robert Parker. So you went from being an indentured servant to avoid being a permanent slave by running to Robert Parker. Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Hampton court in 1654. 1655, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold John Caser indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanction for blacks to own a slave of their own race. Thus, Caser became the first permanent slave and Johnson the first slave master. Anthony Johnson, the pioneer of American slavery, political correctness must die. Fool, you just incriminated yourself while not even realizing you incriminated yourself. The picture that you see there is not Anthony Johnson. The picture you see there is a black man that was an abolitionist named Lewis Hayden. Let that be known. Because bow ties in the 1600s was not really worn in America heavily like that. If you studied the history of clothing and fashion in the 17th century in the said United States. So that picture is false. Again, that image is truly a person named Lewis Hayden, who was an abolitionist in the 19th century. Research, that's one thing to point out. The next logical question I'm asking is, when it says right here, brothers and sisters, in 1655, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson, how did a black man get the name Johnson, could hold John case indefinitely. Who were the people who allowed that? See, when they posted this, they didn't think somebody was perhaps going to study. Just like I didn't understand why, though I hope you didn't, you asked for the receipt when I was a child coming back from the store with change that was short. See the criminal mindset? When you're not living upright, not that anybody is perfect, you don't think about the mistakes you're going to make, baby. You don't sit back and think like, this may go wrong. This can be exposed. You think the world is stupid. Why do you think our parents would say things? I know I heard it. You must think I'm a fool. Why are you trying to insult my intelligence? Putting something up like that and saying that the black man was a pioneer, after we already defined what a pioneer was, is the person that is the first in one enterprise to pursue something. You're saying that a black man in what became the United States was the first slave owner. So now when this person, all right, was asking me in this here, or who was the first slave owner in the United States, if Johnson had that thing that happened in the 1650s, how do we describe what happened with George Yarley, who passed away being a permanent slave owner before 1630? We were not supposed to read. And then we were, quote, allowed to read, entertainment, keep the Negro clapping, happy and singing. And I use myself as a reference. When I knew I cut school or did something wrong or anything of that sort, mommy is on the phone laughing and talking with her friends. She don't know what's going on. She's entertained. That's what they do with us. They keep us entertained. Keep them clapping, laughing, singing, bowing down to idols, keep them entertained. So what are we dealing with in this manner? Keep them dumb. Keep them happy. Keep them entertained. Have the women feel a man with a sense of humor must be one of the top 3 to 5 things. I get bored very easily. That kind of spirit. You understand? In the Bible, in the said Old Testament, it speaks about they who increase in wisdom and understanding increase in sorrow and vexation. And another statement that our elders, that's in Ecclesiastes chapter 1 in the scriptures. And our elders also stated, ignorance is bliss. As you know, ain't got to worry about it. That kind of spirit. So let's look at this, family. And certainly my older brother in spirit wrote, some of the so-called American, quote, Indian tribes were the last to release slaves in the U.S., like the Cherokee and so on. When I discovered this, I lost empathy for them, just being honest. Did you know, for what it is worth, with the former Confederacy and the Union was telling Indian native tribes, let the Negro go, I'm keeping him. They were in argument with the Europeans about keeping the black man as a slave. Did you know that? That happened with the Cherokee, for instance, one of the, quote, 5 civilized tribes. So again, this is not to bash or disrespect, but to bring out this for the minimalists who want to sit there and want to keep things quiet. Don't ruffle feathers. Leave it alone. Everything is not for everybody. Every platform is not for everybody. I have, for those who do know, a beautiful child who thinks history is straight boring. I have only one child who, not to get too personal, making it always about my family and business, she can care less about history like that. But it's still my duty as a person who is the father of the child to entertain and encourage and support and uphold what she's about that's righteous. She doesn't have to uphold and entertain what I do as a hobby and as I do as a passion. You understand? Some parents, not that I'm the best parent or was the best parent, they want their children to be just like them. No. You're supposed to want your children to be greater and better than you. And you got some who are jealous of their own children. That's just ridiculous. You understand? That doesn't make any sense. So in 1842, there was the Black or Negro Cherokee War, where in the state of what we call Oklahoma today, there was a conflict between the indigenous tribe, that was the Cherokee, and Black people who were enslaved under them that sat there and rose up against that particular thing and matter. So no disrespect. We are indigenous to here, but you're the same person in spirit that would say, well, it was only 20 people to Virginia. Like, the hell with it. There's only 20, you know? I remember mommy spanking me for over $20. Imagine how that would have been if I was just, well, it's just 20, you know? I'm not going to correct my child or let my child know that, you know, it's just 20. Where would I be now with that? Trying to sell a history book, entertaining, encouraging a book that says thou shalt not steal. Where would you be? Because you know when Israelites online or offline do wrong, you know that person's exposed quicker, right? Think about that. Any Israelite brother or sister that's been wicked, camp leaders, etc., have been exposed the quickest and the fastest. That's just real talk. So it's not to say let's sit there and act like everything was hunky-dory and everything was happy, go, joy. But at the same token, family, no. Do not sit there, brothers and sisters, and entertain that which is wrong and think everything going to be the same way. That kind of lesson supersedes history, Hebrew, and anything else. All right, so let's continue, family, in this. All right, thank you for the time. Let's go right here. George Washington was not the last to release his slaves. Yet his nephew, Bushrod Washington, put them back into slavery. I know you did not say Washington released his slaves as the first or last to do so. I mentioned Washington for a reason. It is silly to even congratulate a person, a criminal, a swindler who came up, made it big, was fortunate, like Washington, to have slaves from the age of 11, dying at age 67, and thus having slaves for over 50 years. You want us to sit there and feel great for Washington with the apple tree situation and so forth, talking about, well, he was a slave owner and on his deathbed, he released them. He had them since age 11. Those who didn't die off, and he got, quote, new ones, because the book, the Black Book, when you look it up online, it talks about him trading Black people as slaves between the United States and the West Indies. That's why FBA, Foundational Black Americans, or whatever they call themselves, trying to disrespect those from the West Indies, you're not making any sense. And let me say, in the rap world, there will be no DOS effects. They want effects, microphone checker. That would not exist in the 1990s without one of them coming from the island in Jamaica. There would not, correct me if I'm wrong, that I studied in music, there will be no hip hop if it did not come from reggae dancehall. So we cannot divide the Black man in, quote, the States and, quote, the Black man in the islands and think everything's going to be okay. Because now we got to ask, are you on what side? Who are you battling for? Correct me if I'm wrong. The city of Chicago was founded by a Black man from Haiti. I can tell you straight up and down, I had an aunt that was from Haiti who worked in cooperation with my mother when I was a child. My mother's not from the Caribbean. My aunt was. And she worked with my mother to get me books, to get me reading pretty well. Maybe I should have learned French from her. I probably would have read some of the stuff easier. But what I'm saying, nonetheless, is we, quote unquote, Black Americans, in quote, the states, hating, disrespecting, not wanting to get along with our extended, if you want to use that term, brothers and sisters from the islands, cut ourselves short. Do you know that Nat Turner did his uprising around the same timing, the year after a guy named Daddy Sharp in Jamaica did it? He had 20,000 people from the Igbo tribe that rose up in Jamaica. They call him in Jamaica Sam Sharp or Daddy Sharp, for those who know that history. The year after, Nat Turner did what he did. Do you see who could be behind trying to separate the matter with that? With just being, I'm a foundational Black American. And it started not in 1619, but rather in 1526. You're right. The slavery that happened with said Black people in the Western Hemisphere did not start in 1619. That was with the British colony. After the matter with the Dutch. But when you talk about Lucas Vacus alone in 1526, going to what we call North and South Carolina today with captives, he belonged to the same ethnic group as Ponce de Leon. Who was Ponce de Leon? Ponce de Leon was the guy from Spain, brothers and sisters, who, quote, founded what we call today Puerto Rico and Florida. Florida has many Black people in it. The word Florida is a Spanish word for flower, like the flower you give your lady, not the flower you cook with. See how they were connected in their wickedness? We can't sit there and be divided in our sadness. Let's continue. Most enslavers were more vested in enslaving than emancipating. So as you were not and are not an enslaver, I am not one to congratulate a person, say like Mary Surratt, who due to economic problems sold to slaves. Mary Surratt was the friend to John Wilkes Booth through her son, John Surratt. She was in association and connected with those who wanted to first kidnap Lincoln, and then when that didn't go through, sit there and have him assassinated. They lynched her. She, prior to that, to get rid of some of her problems economically, she sold the Black slaves that she had. Am I supposed to sit there and say, well, Washington, he got rid of his slaves after he worked them till they can't sit there and be worked anymore, and Mary Surratt did what? Just take the L. Whatever happened to saying that ain't me? And then when you say it ain't you, you still want to condemn those who it were. That were of a different color. See, where is your righteousness that you can line up among yourselves? That's what we as Black people need to sit there and work on. So our children don't have to answer to other people for our stupidity and wickedness. You understand? I think George Washington's wife's name was Martha. I could be wrong. George Washington's wife, for a long time, looked for a Black slave that ran away from them. So I'm going to need people, no disrespect, to miss me with the concept of trying to say he wasn't a bad person. Or some have gone as far as saying George Washington was Black. No, he was not. Abraham Lincoln married a woman who was the daughter of a slave master. While he was champion for the Union Army, his brother and two of his brother-in-laws were part of the Confederacy. Mary Lincoln, the wife of Abraham Lincoln, did not marry a Negro. Her father from Kentucky was a slave master. The pictures you see of Abraham Lincoln, and I've seen them of being a Black man, is no different, excuse my language, when he got into Washington and got a letter from the Caucasians saying, you ain't nothing but a goddamn nigga. That's what Lincoln was getting in his messages. So when we see newspaper articles, excuse me for the bluntness, I wanted to state what they was telling him, they were saying that he is to be insulted by showing him as a Black man. Not that he truly was Black. His wife showed that. He said that in his own speeches. So just want to point that out. There are no slaves in the USA today. Take your fight here. And when you see here, it's something that isn't come out that clear, but they was trying to show places in Africa where there's slaves. So you're telling me what I need to do in one instance, and you're telling me where to take fight. I wasn't fighting no one. I was posting things online. But the truth against a lie is a battle. So that's why battle and fight, you might see those terms being used. You battling and, you're fighting. All I did was just type something with fingers on a computer and sent it out. And then you decided to respond. But that's a fight. You're telling me where to take my fight to. So that right there was just crazy. This is the message sent to me. But I wanted to ask, if there were black women that were sold as sex slaves in the United States, what is the difference in saying there's no slaves in the USA today and the women who were ignored by Pam Bondi earlier this year, late last year, that were the Epstein victims, regardless of gender or race? What is the difference between the black females in the 17 and 1800s that were traded as sex slaves and the victims of Jeffrey Epstein that was flown or taken to some island and dealt with as sex slaves? So now when you up there saying the United States doesn't, check it. Yes, it does. Don't talk about slavery. Trump didn't want to talk about it. It don't make America look good. And Epstein files don't make everybody look good either. But that's the difference in what Rome Corner calls the Old Testament. Because you're going to read about the crimes of the children of Israel. You're not going to get a romanticism. Everything was great. Everything was perfect. No, these are the children who disobey their parents. These are the parents who neglect their children. This is the house of Israel. These are the men who sleep with another man's wife. These are the wives. He ain't there for me. He don't pay attention to me. These are the wives who sit there and sleep with another man when she's married. This is the house of Israel. You understand? They hatch basilisk eggs, and they that eat of them dieth, is what the prophet Isaiah said. I have planted a notable vine, and out came a degenerate plant. It's in Jeremiah. You're not going to get in the Tanakh, in the said Old Testament, a romanticism. We don't know why Assyria. Hey, my brother who pointed it out, was it Shalmaneser or Sargon? Israel knew why Assyria attacked them. It was no big mystery like we don't know. Be responsible, and like black men tell black women and black women tell black men, you need to be more accountable. So don't sit there and act like I don't have the foggiest idea why. Stop it. Stop lying to yourself. Stop dealing in romanticism. Stop embellishing the truth. And this is the response to me. Listen, brother, I truly believe that anybody who took part in the slave trade is a terrible person. But this narrative to blame the white man for everything has gone so far that there are people in this world today in some in positions of power that wish ill on all white people. And it's that type of racial divide that will keep this nation looking to the past and continuing the perpetual hate machine. But when I applied to get a car, you said, look at brother man's credit history. Was I the only person in the chat or in the line now that went through that? When I went to go get a car, they said, not to get too personal, well, sir, due to your credit history, we're going to have to ask, do you happen to have a cosigner? How do I look, knowing what bills they were talking about, to sit there and say, listen, man, just move past it. So the car company that got to cover their own self with their banks or whatever, I'm telling them, don't worry about it. Just, get over it. No, we, the car company, have a standard. And if you don't meet our standard, you're not getting this car without a cosigner. And it's hard to get a cosigner when they're looking like, why do you need me to cosign and you can't handle your own business? Be accountable, brother, sister. These are things that we see right here that say it's going on too far. When do you ever take accountability where all the people talking about credit repair and we can sit there and fix your credit and we'll get all these things off your account? When do you try to sit there and fix what's on your account so you not in the red? You just going to tell somebody just move on, huh? That's ridiculous. Because you can't tell that to the car company that looks at your history. Just using that as an example. Let me see the comments if I may. Maybe I said something not truth and not trying to be funny or anything of that sort. They look at your credit history when you go for a house, right? They look at your credit history when you deal with trying to get a car, right? I just wanted to sit there and make sure when they have their thing, you know, whether it's 600s, the 700s, or 800s, and quote your credit score, that helps them decide how they will and want to deal with you. So we have to ask, who made the decision to come with something just as silly as that? Again, I'm going to post in here the brothers info, Commandment Keepers EHC2. All right, we don't went past 2 hours. That generally happens. I try not to go there. So we're going to make this into a part 2 at a certain point. All right, let's continue, family. Thank you for the time. Sadly, slavery is in the USA. Sex trafficking is a form of slavery. Pimps in places like Georgia engage in it. I have seen in New York pimps and quote harlots. And the females are kept in rooms that are not good. That is slavery. When they are caught, the pimps get, in many cases, mandatory life sentences. Police have done sting operations where the sex offender has been recorded knowing to him he is seeing a minor for, quote, sex. And all we have to do is look at the victims of Epstein and R. Kelly to know that, sadly, slavery exists in the West. So what are you talking about? It doesn't exist. It does. And it's sad. It is not good. It's not something to be proud of. In Georgia, it exists. And I'm not saying it don't exist in other places. My beautiful child was approached by a madam, yo, and told my princess all she got to do is, quote, shake it when she was just 17 years old and get paid. How many children have gone missing? Where are they being taken to? So when anybody, man, woman, black, white, or even child say, slavery don't exist. Yes, it does. Stop lying and embellishing things. Let's continue, family. Where people mess up in these comments is getting defensive and demanding. Never do you tell another person what one needs to do. As one person in the comments has told me, suggest, advise, cool, but not tell what one needs to do. Another thing is that I was not sure if the Anthony Johnson thing was what you were going to say was the first slave holder. I heard others say it. And when I present the information about it, it is then moved on in silence. See, when you spoke about, and this is my response to the person, well, do you know who the first slave master was? Let's go on, family, right? It is then moved on in silence. See, when you spoke about slavery in other parts of the world, like people in the comments here, say white Christians have brought freedom, while those same places are rife with Christians, it makes the point moot. The USA is not the home of the white man. So to have gotten a land by force and forced treaties, then enslave people in it, then say you in general ended it, is to, if anything, your credit. You in general did some bad stuff and seek from it. I am not one to give a cookie for such. Are white people hoping black people will not speak on certain parts or no parts of slavery? If you nor your family are guilty of it, and if we look at the meme, as was done, and some white people jumping into the conversation that does not concern them, you can't say that ain't got nothing to do with me and you shouldn't even be talking about it. That means you totally in somebody else's business. You saying this thing, there's all white people. No. See, what happens is the Negro began to read. And then when you deal with reading, you eventually begin to deal with reasoning. When they had us not reading and being illiterate, there's a reason why they did that. Let's continue with the time, family. Let me ask you this. Do you know who was the last group of people who were to release their slaves? This is to me. Or who was the first slave owner in the United States was? You ask me that. I ask you the same question. Who was the first slave owner in the United States? There were African leaders who even apologized for it. This is my response. Two noted African leaders, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Kapoto Zumi Hokpon III, if I mispronounce it, let me know. Matthew Kerrico, sorry if I mispronounced, apologized for their people's role in the slave trade back in 2013. Not to be nitpicking, but for the sake of history and politics, why was Mississippi still a legal slave state until 2013? Who ended what? Brothers and sisters, what are we talking about in this particular case, if we will? I would like to do this here. When did MISSISSIPPI abolish slavery? Slavery in Mississippi was legally abolished nationwide in 1865 with the 13th Amendment, but the state did not officially ratify the amendment until 2013. Why did Mississippi not abolish slavery until 2013? This is about what happened after many of us were born. What are you talking about? It's in the past, just let it go. No. 2013, some of us remember for whatever reason. Let's continue. America every July the 4th celebrate defeating Britain. But we're told, just forget that history. Just forget history, okay? The KKK is linked to some black organizations. I heard of such. There too are sadly black gangsters. Who blamed America for the blood and Crip gangs? No one, unless I am mistaken. Have you heard of the Scramble for Africa? The KKK has a history of murder of people. How does America look? Saying it stopped slavery, then cannot and would not stop the acts of the KKK. Please let me know about Americans helping Africans, and I will pull up the articles where Africans were not allowed to enter the country during the timing of the Democrat rule, where the leader of the country said Haitians are eating cats and dogs. That was your friend Trump. There will be no response to the question I see. The question was, if I was attacked by black guys and others were unalive by black guys, should I not speak of what I experienced? So in other words, in what they will put, that's black on black crime. Nobody say don't talk about that though. But anything that has something that doesn't make the other party look good or makes the other party, for the lack of a better term, look bad, you're going to tell me what one needs to do and where one needs to look. So study this, look at this, and then talk about that. As long as it don't involve you, huh? If that ain't something biased, you let me know what it is. I have been to Africa over the course of time. I have read about the matter of the Saharan area and slavery, because that's what they try to show. I have read of the abolitionists in their deeds, the matter with John Brown and his family in Virginia, and what happened with John Wilkes Booth. However, I will take the liberty and answer the question I asked. I have as much right to speak on my experience as Anne Frank did in her diary. Oluda Equiano, who was captured from Nigeria and brought to America as a captive too, had the right to speak on his experience. No one was twisting anything. You're trying to sit there and twist it a certain way, and it's kicking your behind, and therefore you feel bad about it. It is just now Black people are not accepting Black people's story, followed by the British enslaved the Irish, as a way to get Black people to shut up about history that hits them. With that being, with that can be said, not all African people are monolithic, just like all East Asians are not. So this is something to point out in reference purposes. All right. We are going to, brothers and sisters, take an intermission with the timing. All right. And play music and get back to this. Thank you for that, family. All right. Again, if I can be heard well, people in good spirits, please type in the number 4. Thank you for that, family, in this particular case. All right. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. We're going to, brothers and sisters, called Israel in Captivity. We're going to make it a part 2, but we want to go over a couple of more things with the timing allotted. All right. Because we've already gone past the 2-hour mark. And if there are any questions about the presentation, feel free to text, call, WhatsApp at 908-587-4841. All right. Thank you for that. Let me, brothers and sisters, all right, stop the screen here, share the screen here in that particular case, if we will. All right, we're going to go here. All right, do that in that particular case. Hopefully everybody as well, and will be better. All righty. Thank you for the time. You could be anywhere right now, but you're here. And if you listen to this later, that means you're here later or now and later. No pun intended. All right. So if we go right here, brothers and sisters, and let the book speak as we close out this particular first portion of this presentation, we're going to read one of the scriptures that's here, and that is in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. And there's a couple of things that we care to bring out in this particular case. All right, if we will. If it can be seen, I'm going to be able to see it on my side screen, brothers and sisters. All right, yes. In Deuteronomy 28:64, we read, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all peoples, from the one end of the earth even to the other end of the earth. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, even wood and stone." So what can we say about this portion right here? "And the Lord, Yah, shall scatter thee among all peoples." So when brothers here and when sisters here, other nations attempt to say that Deuteronomy 28 from verse 52 all the way down to verse 68 is only about Israel and Rome, as some people have stated, how then do you explain Deuteronomy 28:64 that says, "And the Lord shall scatter thee among all peoples"? That can't just be talking about Rome. All right, from the one end of the earth even to the other end of the earth. So it certainly isn't just talking about a place in Italy. "And there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, even wood and stone." So when the concept that comes and says, "Oh, well, the people that you're saying in Western Africa were Israelites, they bow down to idols." Again, sadly, no disrespect. So did Jeroboam bring that in. No disrespect after Solomon brought that in. No disrespect to the great Aaron after he did that. So these men, certainly Aaron and Solomon, great men, brothers and sisters, whom we are not on their level, their identity of being a house of Israel doesn't change because they made an error or they did something incorrect. This is not romanticism or religion. Israel is an ethnic people. Now, how moral and righteous you are is your own character. So now once we read here that the Lord Yah will scatter thee, Israel, among all peoples, from the one end of the earth even to the other end of the earth, we cannot come with a chart that says, "Oh, it's only in the Western Hemisphere." Because it says from one end of the earth to the other about Israel and the scattering. Now, when we go back, brothers and sisters, into this here, because as you see, there's more notes. The brother Kazak spoke about Israelites being in Egypt in his presentation, right? Hafra, our priest, which is mentioned inside the historian book, Herodotus, by the way. When you read about Hafra and a priest, we're talking about the later matter of the Egyptian dynasties. All right. Now, when we look at this here, we take the laser pointer, right, with the timing allotted, remembering that Deuteronomy 28 already said about the people being scattered from one end of the earth to the other. He spoke in his presentation, the brother Rob Chief Kazak Ben Zadok, in his presentation, his channel was shown earlier for those who, and we're going to show it again before the presentation is done, all right, about Israelites that was in Elephantine Island. The brother mentioned correctly Jeremiah 44 that speaks about North and Tapankes. Tapankes, brothers and sisters, we see right here. Tel Daphne, all right? That's where in part Israel was scattered. It also mentioned Patros, Piteret, brothers and sisters, in the southern part, even where this map doesn't show. So Israel was scattered up and down in parts in Egypt. Now, one thing we care to point out is this logically, and closing out. The people are going to be scattered, truth into where they're used to going. When Jeroboam, not focusing on his wickedness, but when Jeroboam, prior to him becoming the king of the northern tribes of Israel, and he had contentions with Solomon, Solomon had contentions with him, he fled to the land of Egypt until Solomon's death. Did you know that? That Solomon was going to try to unalive Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. And Nebat was a person who worked for Solomon. See, the Bible, the scriptures, we talk in the Old Testament, we want to point out, does not, again, give you a romanticism. The wisest man in the world was looking to unalive somebody because he didn't like what was going on. Your intelligence and knowledge doesn't always show in your actions. And this is not to, again, shame Mashiach Shlomo, Solomon the anointed. All right? But we just want to point that out, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. Now, I don't know why they always show, like when I was in Egypt, somebody with a chipped nose. They one time was trying to explain online, okay, the first thing to go off in much artwork is the nose. So what's the next thing to naturally fall off if the nose is the first thing? Because the lips is still there, the ear is still there, the images of the eyes are still there. So why is all the noses missing? But in many cases, so let's go back into the matter right here. We already have Jeroboam already going to the land of Egypt, right? Prior to that, Solomon would have people going obviously into Egypt because his wife of his plethora of wives was an Egyptian woman, the daughter of a pharaoh. In a presentation that's done on Solomon, King of Israel, on the platform, Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons, I present that the wife of Solomon is the daughter of Thutmose I and the sister of Queen Hatshepsut, which is why in Egyptian records, she's X'd out because she wound up being with a Hebrew man, or a Habiru, if we will, or part of the Amu, if we will. In the scriptures, it says that Solomon's father-in-law, an Egyptian pharaoh, took one of the cities of Canaan and gave it to his son-in-law. When you read about the wars that Thutmose I had, it correlates with such. And I present that in more detail in a presentation about Solomon, king of Israel, and who he had married according to historical timeline and putting things into perspective. Now, brothers and sisters, so if the kingdom of the Israelites was in part linked through a marriage with the kingdom of the Egyptians of the 18th dynasty, you certainly are going to have Israelites in Egypt prior to the timing of Jeroboam. We asked earlier, what made, brothers and sisters, John Wolfe comfortable with John Hope? What made John Hope comfortable with John Wolfe to do the trade of our ancestors in Richmond, in Jamestown, Virginia? You understand? What made, now in history, Jeroboam comfortable with going into the land of Egypt? Now, after the timing of both Solomon and Jeroboam, some centuries later, you got the prophet Isaiah saying that Israel went into Egypt, but not by his spirit. And that's in Isaiah chapter 30. So we already see the migration of Israel going into Northeast Africa for quite some time over the course of centuries. Now, sometime after the matter of Isaiah, as the brother Kazak pointed out, you have it to where Israelites was in Egypt. You read in Jeremiah 44, brothers and sisters. And the time frame between Isaiah and Jeremiah is over 50-something years. Because in Isaiah chapter 1, when you're dealing with regnal dating, you got it, and it says the words of Isaiah that came in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Hezekiah, king of Judah's son, was King Manasseh, and he wasn't the most righteous. All right, he's known as one of the worst kings that reigned in the scriptures. So again, you don't get romanticism. You get, this is the record. You understand? So now after Manasseh's passing, you have Manasseh and Ammon, then you had Josiah. The prophet Jeremiah began to prophesy while still being a Na'ar, as pointed out by the brother Kazak, when King Josiah was ruling in the tribe of Judah. King Josiah is known in archaeology when you go into those books called Time Life books, because he got rid of the images that ancient Israel was making for horses and worship of the sun, which archaeologists have discovered. So these are things that we want to point out for reference purposes. Again, when you go into Time Life books about archaeology in the Holy Land, the work that this book of 2 Kings 23 talks about in conclusion of this presentation, before we get to part 2 next time, it speaks about the evidence of Josiah for those who like external biblical sources. So now, when we get back into this, if we will, family, you had Josiah, then you had Jehoiakim, then you had Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim was not the most righteous either. No offense to him. He unalived a prophet during the time of Jeremiah, prophetic timing, by the name of Uriah the prophet. Uriah the prophet, like Jeroboam the king, fled to Egypt. Jeroboam fleeing to Egypt centuries before that. Centuries after Jeroboam, you had the prophet Uriah, Uriah, brothers and sisters, that was sought by Jehoiakim's men, and then he was brought back to the land of Israel and unalived. So Israel was not the most righteous. We're not going to sit there and romanticize something. What made the prophet Uriah run for his life into the continent of Africa? What made centuries before that Jeroboam do that? What made them comfortable to want to do that? For those who know, quote, Black American history, what made Black people in the 1980s flock to Virginia, and in the 1990s flock to Charlotte, North Carolina, in that particular, because people talk. Come over here. It's better over here than in Brooklyn. No offense. I lived in Brooklyn. Come over here. Yeah, you get more for your dollar in North Carolina, man. People were saying that about North Carolina and in Virginia. You make that New York money down here, you go and make it good. So I'm saying that as an example. In the 1980s, those who know Black people coming out of New York greatly went to Virginia, Norfolk, Chesapeake, etc. And Black people in the 1990s heavily went to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then from that point going to Atlanta, you go to Atlanta, it looked like part of Brooklyn. For those who know, I use Chesapeake and Hampton and areas like that of Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Ballantine, North Carolina, Waxhaw, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, because we can relate to that. For those saying the East Coast, coming out of New York, out of New Jersey, wanting, quote, better. So if Israel in their land were acting up and being foolish, why would they not go where they find things to be better in the land of Egypt, for instance? Now, after the timing of Uriah, right, the prophet during the time of Jeremiah, we've already went over, as my brother Chief Kazak did, Rabbi Kazak, about the matter once it came down to them being in Elephantine Island, which is by the cataract going toward modern-day Sudan. So now you have the prophet Zephaniah that speaks about Israel being scattered beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. The rivers of Ethiopia today are called the White and Blue Nile. So if Israel was scattered beyond those rivers, you're either going further south into Africa, the Limba people, who knows, and or Western Africa, where the Igbo people, brothers and sisters, are proclaiming themselves as the house of Israel. And there was a sister that was from the Igbo people that I used to work with. And when she heard my Hebrew name, she said, that sounds something like God. When she heard that my name was Yeshaya. From the Igbo people, the lady said, she was a co-worker, that sounds like something that's to do with God. How is a woman from Nigeria hearing the Hebrew name saying that? Oluda Equiano was from the Igbo people. According to John Blassingame in his book called The Slave Community, he talked about the matter of the guy Oluda Equiano showing that his people's customs were like that of the Hebrews of the Old Testament. These things, brothers and sisters, are not things we making up out of our head. Check out the sources if you care to. So now when you go into this portion that we're looking at right here in Jeremiah 44, let's go there, please, quickly, looking at this map, right? And let's see what we can ascertain in this particular matter. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters, right? If we will. Jeremiah 44, we're just going to read the first verse, all right? We're going to make this a part 2 with the timing. We know we've been long. Thank you for joining us and staying with us and so forth, all right? It said the word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the Yahudim, translated Jews there, of Judah, that dwelt in the land of Egypt, that dwelt at Migdol, and at Tapanhes, and at Noph, and in the country of Patros. Patros is Piteret. Elephantine Island, called that by the Greeks, but called Yeb, Y-E-B, by the Egyptians themselves. But Israel, brothers and sisters, call it Patros. So we just want to point that out, as pointed out in the book Egypt Talking Writing, the geographical lands of Israel scattering that would name different things, same land by different people. All right. So now when we see Migdol, Tapankes, and Noph, Noph is Memphis. No, as you read in the book of Nahum, the land of No in the land of Egypt is what the Egyptians called Waset, and what the Greeks later on called the land of Thebes. So now, knowing some of that stuff about geography, we can see where the children of Israel or the children of Israel went to. Let us, brothers and sisters, continue. If we pull this up, it should be seen, hopefully, in this particular matter, right? Thank you. So we see Tapankes, we see Memphis, which is Noph, and going further, you get into the country of Piteret. So, brothers and sisters, why will the people go into England and settle there in great numbers when they got prophets that were brought to Egypt and Northeast Africa? Let's continue, family. Call this one here from Rome to Jerusalem. Call this one here from Jerusalem to Ghana. So the Romans came against the Israelites, being stronger than the Israelites, having more military power than the Israelites, but the Israelites, for the lack of a better term, were still defending theirs to their best ability. So you had Rome going as a stronger force against Jerusalem. And the people that were in Jerusalem, eventually after time, you see Elephantine Island over here, Khartoum, which is in modern day Sudan, going and then going west beyond the rivers of Ethiopia and settling into Western Africa, where we start talking about the Windward Coast as we did earlier and the Rice Coast as we did earlier. Let's look. Boney, Old Calabar, Elmina, Axing, Gori. Those were slave ports, brothers and sisters, where the people were taken and brought over raw cotton that we talked about before. Senator Hammond of South Carolina said no one dare make war on cotton. And he was one of the politicians from South Carolina. So the cotton that was picked in the United States was shipped there, brought in a triangular trade. So FBA, you got a lot of explaining to do about who the people were. And by saying only 20 was brought to Virginia, those are the books on the left-hand side for those who are interested. You can take the screenshot. Brothers and sisters, in closing out and giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the one who sees all and is not seen, the one who judges all and is not judged. We're going to close out. We're going to read the comments. Great book. Thank you for that. The brother Kazak wrote bars. That's deep, Moray. they would only go to a place they had some root or was really comfortable. No black people are moving to South or North Dakota. That's interesting because North to South Dakota, believe it or not, is trying to open up, quote unquote, for black people, saying that they got the jobs here, $20-something an hour. But as you pointed out, we not running over to North to South Dakota in numbers like that. We're not comfortable there like that. You understand? Just to use that as an example. All right. If I'm not mistaken, the brother wrote this, perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, when Jehoiakim sent for the prophet Uriah in that particular matter. Let me know if that's what you was talking about. And our friend, I found out is a brother, even married an Egyptian. I believe maybe you were talking about Solomon. In that particular matter, he married a Hamite woman. He didn't develop Ham is black because of this, and the lips are big because of that. Solomon, they say that stuff. So looking, say, added for reference purposes in that particular case. And giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator, the Maker of heaven and earth. We did not want to go into 3 hours of a presentation. We intend to do a part 2 to this. Some of the slides were skipped for time purposes. All right. So what we're going to do is play a song and close out. Thank you for that, family. What we're about to hear in closing out is an old version of the song called Hallelujah. Hallelujah means praise Yah. What you're going to hear in it is Hallelujah, meaning praise Yah. Tekwabel tefilo tenu, will you accept our prayers? Shalom.